Hi guys, it's Emily from Novel Novels and welcome to today's extra video. This is the 5 from 5 Victorian Novels tag. This tag was created by the lovely Roz at Scully Dangling About the Books with her daughter, and I can't remember her name, but I'll be linking Roz's video for this down below. And it is about your top 5 Victorian novels over the last 5 years, but it's not allowed to include a book you've read multiple times before those 5 years. So we all know my favourite Victorian novel ever is going to be Wuthering Heights, so I couldn't include that. But I'll be honest, apart from one of these books, I've only ever read any of them once, because obviously I only really got into Victorian novels. So this is actually, I can start this video off with a bit of a description. Basically, apart from Wuthering Heights, which I grew up with, I never really read Victorian classics. I never really read any classics before BookTube. Just before I got my own channel, I started watching BookTube because my sister Charlie at Charlie Brooke, link her channel down below, subscribe to her. Before I even got my own channel, she had a channel, and she talked about different booktubers to watch. One of the first booktubers that I watched was Katie at Books and Things. Again, I'll link her channel down below. And she was the one that actually reintroduced me. Watching her videos got me wanting to read Victorian classics again. And I think my first Victober was 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. And that was when I started reading Victorian literature. And I started obviously off with the Brontes. I think Dickens was another one that I knew about. I think then I went to Elizabeth Gaskell's books. And I sort of stuck around about those ones, as well as reading like the Victorian classic, the children's classics like Black Beauty, The Water Babies, and ones like that. But I did sort of stick to authors that I knew about. And then over the years, I've gradually tried more and more different Victorian authors. I've done years basically where I've done sort of focused on a Victorian author a year. So I think I've sort of like with the Brontes, it was the Brontes. I read all of the Brontes books in 1 year. Then I read Elizabeth Gaskell's books. I read that last year. I think I read all of her books last year. This year I've been focusing a lot on Thomas Hardy, although Thomas Hardy has so many books. So although I've read a lot of his books, I haven't read all of them, and I've got a lot more that I'm going to keep reading. And obviously next year I'm going to be doing the Dickens ones and finishing up from the end of like December to the end of next year. I would like to finish all of Dickens' full works. I'm not counting, I've already said this, I'm not counting The Mystery of Edwin Drood because it didn't get finished, although it is on my Amazon wishlist and I will read it at some point. And I have got his ghost stories. So that's kind of the things that I've been doing with Victorian literature. Also this year I've started reading a lot more Wilkie Collins. He's an author I found I was very hit and miss with him. So I loved The Woman in White and the Moonstone. I read Armadale, I didn't love that. So it was just a bit like, oh. And Hardy again seems to be very hit and miss. George Eliot, I loved Silas Marner, didn't particularly like Mill on the Floss. Currently reading Middlemarch and not loving it as much, like not really connecting with it. There's certain bits of it that I'm liking. So that's sort of my, so I will say that even though Roz from the Scully Dang, Roz actually tagged me to do this because she said I do read a lot of Victorian novels, and I do. I really, next year I've got a big project. I'm trying to think, and I've got my notes here. Yeah, next year I'm going to be reading. I've got a big project planned, and I will be reading a lot more. I've got 10 classics to read next year, plus my Dickens books. Although in those 10 classics to read next year, there are some more modern classics. And there are classics from different eras because I did want to mix it up. But I love Victorian literature. Katie getting me into them has been a real find. So yes, apart from one of these, I've read them all only once. But they're all the ones that were stuck in my mind. So they were ones that I've all sort of got 5 stars, ones that I've not been able to forget. So I know I'm going to forget some. They're like, I'm not included, there's only one Bronte book in here. I'm not going to tell you who. But a lot of the other Bronte books are good. There was only one that really stood out to me, and the other ones I need to reread. So I think going forward, I'm going to be rereading all of the Bronte books again. Going forward, I'll be rereading all the Gaskell books again. I have got lots of rereads, but because I've got so many classics on my shelves, I find rereads really hard because it's using up time that I could spend trying a new book. So what I will say is I'm going to tag my peoples first. If you want to do it, do it. If I've not tagged you and yet you've seen you want to do it, please link me down below. I'd love you to do it. But the 3 people I would like to tag are, first of all, Charlie from Charles Heathcote. I haven't tagged him in a while. Charlie's a great friend of mine, one of the nicest guys ever. And I would love to know what his favourite classics are, because he's very hit and miss with certain ones. And he actually introduces me to other classics, so I would love to see what you do. Nikki from Red Dot Reads, I know that you're very busy with your videos at the moment, but if you can do it, I'd love to see what books you choose. And then lastly, Mitzi from Mitzi Reads and Writes, because I think Mitzi is a brilliant channel and I would love to see her favourite classics. So they're the people I'm tagging. I'm going to show you the books in the order because I've actually got the top 5 and tell you a bit about the books. Don't know how much I'll talk about each because, you know, time is what it is. But this first one is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. It is a book that I literally read for this Victober, but it was 5 stars all the way. It was a book that really stood out to me and one that I can't stop thinking about it even after. I read it at the first half of October with Naomi, and it's one I can't put down. Like, I can't get it out of my head, which is another book in here that I felt exactly the same about. But I cannot get it out of my head. It's about the mysterious woman in white who appears at the very start of the book. We've got different narratives, which I love that style of writing. I love the different narrative style of writing. It's a sensational novel. A lot of people have loved The Woman in White. A lot of people have said it's one of their favourite classics. But we have characters in this that I love. There was Marion Halcombe, who's dark and who's just, oh my god, she's like one of my favourite female protagonists in a classic ever. I just cannot describe how amazing she is. And then we've got one of the ultimate baddies in the classic, which is Count Fosco, who is one of the ultimate villains. He is purely evil, and you know that pretty early on. And then you've got the woman in white who's mysterious, and you've got loads of other great characters, but those were the 2 that really stood out to me. This, if you like thrillers and mysteries, like I'm a bit hit and miss with thrillers, like it's not really my go-to genre, but sensational novels, they are incredible. They are just really exciting, and for classics, it meant I didn't actually want to put this down. And I find with a lot of classics, like with Middlemarch, I'm slogging through it. This I didn't want to put down. If I wasn't buddy reading it, I would have read it very, very fast because it's so exciting, so thrilling. It's just one of the best classics. It is certainly by far, in my eyes, Collins' best work that I've read so far. So I've got to find something amazing to pull this up better than this. But yeah, it's just an amazing classic. The writing's easy. It's a fun sensational novel, and it's hard to put down. Now, the next one is one again, I've only read it once, but even though I read it about a couple of years ago, I can't get it out of my head. And it's my only Elizabeth Gaskell. It is my favourite Elizabeth Gaskell, although it is a very fine line between this and another Gaskell, which is Wives and Daughters, which I thoroughly loved as well. But if you want to start with the best Elizabeth Gaskell, you have to start with North and South, because it is about the cultural divide. It's set in Manchester. I'm hoping to go that way next year. And it's about Margaret Hale. Oh my god. And then you've got Margaret Hale, yeah. See, again, I actually remembered her name. That's how good this book is, even though I read it 2 years ago. Her and her family moved from down south up north to live in the industrial town up in Manchester. And they were originally living in the north, in the New Forest. And then you've got John Thornton, who is from the north, and he's from the industrial towns, and he is, yeah, there's a bit of a romance. I will give you warnings, there is a lot of people who die in this book. There is a lot of death, a lot of depression, but bloody hell is it good. It is one of the best classics ever. It is depressing but interesting. Like I said, I love the industrialisation in this book. I love the writing. I love the fact it's very real, it's very relatable. It's just hard to put down, it really is. And it's one that, like I said, even though I read it 2 years ago, it's probably one I've read the longest time ago, but one I can't get my head out. I can't forget it. I would like to actually reread this, and I know that Art from Book Odyssey is reading it next year in April, and I may well do that. I may well actually reread it in April, because it's just, even though it's a long book, it's small. My version is quite small, it's long, but it's really good, and it's really easy to follow through. I'm not going to buddy read it next time, but the first time I read it, I buddy read it with Ange, and some other booktubers that have left that don't seem to be on booktube at the moment. Danny from Spinelli Speaks and Laura from Laura's Book World. I think we've all read it together. But yeah, I'm not going to buddy read it next time. So that's my third favourite. No, it's my fourth favourite. My third is Lady Audley's Secret. It was the book I read last year, and it is one that was in my top books of the year. And to get a classic in the top books of the year is saying something. This was, again, absolutely incredible. It's another sensational novel, but it's probably one of the shortest books I read. It's like less than 300, about 350 pages. But boy, did this keep me on my toes. It is one that I've not been able to forget. I've told everyone that I know was going to read it this year for Victober that they would love it. They all have. I don't know anyone who hasn't loved it. And if you have, well, what are we doing being friends? Because it's just that good. Trust me. Lady Audley is like a flaxen-haired beauty, and she has secrets, and it's, oh my god, is it exciting, and it's female feminines, and it's a thriller, it's a psychological thriller and romance, and oh my goodness, I could not put this down. This was so exciting every bit of the way. There was some real twists and turns. To me, it is darker than The Woman in White, but it is so good. It is just, oh my god. I think probably I don't know, I think they're both very, very close in like favouritism, but there's like bigamy involved in this, and arson and murder, and it's so exciting. If you like thrillers and mysteries, this is like the best classic that you could pick. It really is one of the most best. It's just amazing. I couldn't love it more. So now to my top two. I wonder if any of you are going to predict what books are in my top two classics. If you do, let me know down below. I think everyone's going to guess my first one. I wonder if anyone's going to guess my second. I wonder. I'm thinking this is dangerous. My second favourite is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. It is by far my favourite Dickens book. It is incredible. Again, I read this quite a while ago. It is one of his chunkiest books. It's one I will need to reread at some point, but because it is literally... yeah, nearly 1,000 pages. It's that big. But it is by far... this is what I've got my Dickens project. If any of the other books I read beat this, I will be shocked. It is a lot of people's favourite Dickens. It is by far my favourite. I will also say I did like Great Expectations. I've just read Hard Times. I thought that was really good. I didn't like Oliver Twist as much. I think I'm gonna, once I've done my Dickens project, I'm gonna do a big video on like all the Dickens books. So that's one to expect in a year or so, I think, by the time I did it all up. But this was incredible. It is really about the life of David Copperfield, and it has highs and lows. It goes all different directions. He starts off young, and his mother dies quite young. His father dies when he's very little, and you're going with his journey, and it is just... And I know that I'm not supposed to like the adaptation, but there is only one ever adaptation that I've ever loved, ever, in like even the modern day books, and that was David Copperfield. And that was the best adaptation. It's not completely like the book, but it was just so good. And this copy, oh my god, I can't describe it. Like, I actually pictured the characters, and Uriah Heep is in this, and he is like the ultimate baddie. Like, he is worse than Count Fosco. He is the ultimate baddie. You've got some other amazing characters in this. You've got, oh my god, there was one dappy guy, and I can't remember his name because it is the guy that I read. Micawber, yes. William Micawber, oh my god, Micawber, oh god, I can't say his name, but he was just hilarious. And then you've got like a romance, I think it's Dora's a romance in this as well, and my copy's got like pictures in it, and oh, it's just, I loved it. I loved it. It was amazing. Even though I only read it once, it is one that cannot get out of my head. It is that flipping good. It is so, so good. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Now, for my favourite ever Victorian novel, other than Wuthering Heights. Do never, ever, ever, ever beat Wuthering Heights. A close second. Jane Eyre. I've read this 3 times. And they've all been within the last 3 years, so it doesn't count. So it does count. But it's one I can't forget. It is by far Charlotte Bronte's best work, probably her only really great work in my opinion, because I didn't like the rest of the books as much. To me, other than this, Anne and Emily beat her by far, but she was the one that lived the longest. So she created one amazing classic and the rest are just meh. But again, I may reread them and I may love them, but I don't know. But this is actually part autobiographical, this book. Certainly the start of it, when they go to the hall, they go to Thornfield Hall. And oh my God. And it's got disability rep, it's got romance, it's got hardship. It will break you at the start when she goes off to that little home, and oh my God. And when she meets Mr. Rochester, oh my God, the romance there. But then there's heartbreaking bits in that as well. Oh my God, this is just book. And like when someone she loves dies right at the start, and it broke me. It really did. And they go to that horrible place. Where is it? For the life of me. Even though I've read this book like a million times. You've got Bessie. Oh my God, here we go. This book is just, I can't stop thinking about it. Yeah, you start off this book when she's young and she's living with those cousins, those evil Eliza, John and Georgiana Reed. And John's the biggest twat going, and they're all horrible to her. And this book was actually to William Thackeray Esquire. So this William Thackeray she wrote to in this. And where did she go? Mr. Brocklehurst. Oh my God, this is just like, here we go. Sorry, I just could reread this a million times. I like looking at pictures of it. And they go off to this place. And Lowood. Oh my God, Lowood. Oh my God, that's horrible. They were so horrible there. And like the things about what happened in that is just absolutely sad. And the boarding houses and the poverty, and then she goes off and makes a better life for herself, and then things happen and it's roller coaster ride, but it's just so good. I can't stop loving it. Loving it. I love it that much. It's just such a good book. It is ultimately the most depressing book ever, pretty much apart from Wuthering Heights, but it's her best work. Don't read this if you want to start at the best with Charlotte Bronte, because build up for it, because it's just too good. Nothing will ever be as good as this in my eyes. Other than this, literally, I think if I was to just rate the Bronte books, it would have to be, like if I was doing a top 3 of the Brontes, then it would be Wuthering Heights, this, then Tenant of Wildfell Hall. But I realised I only rated Tenant of Wildfell Hall 4 stars. So, even though it's one that, again, it's like an honorary mention because it was one that I did love, but I only really rated it 4 stars, so I think it's one I need to reread. But, yes, you know I've got to have a Bronte book in this order somewhere. But, those are my top 5 Victorian novels. 5 from 5. There's also me talking a bit about my Victorian history, my history with Victorian books, and my plans for the future. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, not subscribed yet, ring on my ding-a-ling. I will say, if you've not got a BookTube channel, please let me know down below what are your favourite Victorian classics. I would love to know if there's any books that you think I should try. Let me know down below. I know I've not done that in the right order, but they're things that I really love. And I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.